Recording now.
Good evening. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Larkspur City Council. My name is Dan Hilmer. I'm serving as mayor this year, and I will conduct the meeting. The first item on this evening's agenda is the roll call. Would the city clerk please conduct a roll call?
Councilmember Campbell,
I'm here.
Councilmember Hara,
I'm here as well.
Councilmember Way,
Here.
Vice Mayor Paulson,
Here.
Mayor Hilmer.
Present. Thank you very much. Now we will all say the Pledge of Allegiance, as is our custom. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now is the time on the agenda for public comment. These are for items. This is time for items that are not on this evening's agenda. Are there members of the public who would like to speak to items, ask questions, make comments on items that are not on the agenda this evening? Allison, are there any members of the public in the queue?
I'm looking for any raised hands from our audience members or any emailed public comment. And there's no public comment.
Thank you very much. We have no presentations or proclamations this evening. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Are there any members of the City Council that would like to remove items from the consent calendar for questions or comments? Catherine?
I should have brought this up before. I just wondered if, let's see, it's 4.4. If we can just hear sort of, I read that update, but where we're standing as far as what the next phase is, as far as 4.4 in our housing element and general plan update.
Would you like to remove that item for discussion?
I just want that just to see if we can have some update on that information. So yes, I guess to remove it to see where our next steps in the process are.
Okay. Item 4.4, we'll set that aside for a moment. Are there any other council members that would like to remove items for question or comment from the consent calendar? Are there members of the public that would like to remove items from the consent calendar for questions or comments?
I'm looking for any raised hands from our audience members or emailed comments. And there's no public comment.
All right. We'll hold 4.4 for discussion in a moment. I would entertain a motion for the balance of the consent calendar for adoption.
I would move to adopt the remainder of the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent calendar, except for item 4.4. Would the city clerk please conduct a roll call vote?
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Hara,
Yes.
Councilmember Way,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Paulson,
Yes.
Mayor Hilmer.
Yes. The balance of the consent calendar passes. Dan, would now be an appropriate time for discussion for item 4.4 and a brief staff report, please?
I'll give a very brief staff report. I see that Dan Hardert's available. He's our interim planning manager. This is a requirement, state requirement, that we provide a summary report of construction of units relating to our housing element. And so I want to thank Dan for putting it together for us. It's can be cumbersome, although there hasn't been a lot of construction in Larkspur in the last year, so not as trying as it's been in some other years where we've had more construction to put the report together. It gets filed up with the state, and essentially the state makes note of how we're doing relative to the target numbers in the current cycle. Just a reminder, the housing element is not a mandate for construction. It's a mandate to plan for to plan for these possibilities. So I think that's really about it. Dan, is there any key points you want to add to the?
Just in the past couple of years, we've only had just two units, one low income last that documented 2020 and one from last year that was above moderate. So we're trying to hit the numbers. It's been a few years since we've had multiple housing startups. We've had last year, we had 6 entitlements, or was it 5 entitlements? Yeah, it was 5, 2 single family homes and 3 ADUs, but they've only been entitled. So the state really looks at the permitting of them. And some of those may be low income based on the study that Marin County did in 2009. So we won't know until they actually come in and get their permits.
Catherine, do you have any further questions?
No, thank you for elaborating on that. I attended the MCCMC legislative meeting, and there's a lot about housing. So I just want to make sure we're up to date on everything we can. And our council and our community knows that we're engaged in this housing discussion. So thank you for that.
I just want to caution, this is a report about the current cycle.
I understand.
And I'm guessing most of your legislative meeting is reaction to the new cycle.
Yes.
So.
There are other council members that would like to ask questions or make comments regarding this item. I would entertain a motion to consider.
Mr. Mayor, member of the public.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there members of the public that would like to ask questions or make comments on that?
Our first comment will come from Kevin Carroll.
Yes, good evening. I do have one question, and that is related to the very low income units that we're behind on in the report. And will the units added by 1251 South Eliseo be counted in those numbers, or is it considered a separate kind of facility? Thank you.
It's our understanding that timing matters here, and 1251 South Eliseo may come online when the new cycle starts. And yes, there will be credit for those units in the very low income category, but timing will matter on which cycle they get credited to.
Thank you for the question, and thank you to the staff for the answer.
Thank you.
Are there any further discussion on this item? If not, I will entertain a motion for adoption, approval of the staff recommendation.
I'll move a approval of consent calendar item 4.4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the staff recommendation for item 4.4. Would the city clerk please conduct a roll call vote?
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Councilmember Hara,
Yes.
Councilmember Way,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Paulson,
Yes.
Mayor Hilmer.
Yes. Thank you very
Thank you.
and thank you to the staff. Thank you, Dan, for the Dans for the good work on that item. The next item on the agenda this evening is the city manager's oral report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple items for the council and the community. The first is at your last council meeting, you had Todd Lando here, our battalion chief who works on our hazard mitigation matters. Todd has a lot of experience throughout the Ross Valley, and you heard him talk briefly to you about a really exciting project for those of us who are working to reduce fuels in the Ross Valley and reduce the risk of wildfire hazard. And that's what we're calling the Greater Ross Valley Fuel Break Project. And so this is a comprehensive effort of the Ross Valley entities to work together and channel our resources to do a massive undertaking to reduce some of those fuels that are particularly threatening to those of us in the Ross Valley that live with Mount Tamalpais, looming over us. So next Thursday, March 10, from 6 to 8 p.m., there will be an online Zoom meeting in which the project managers are going to go through the entire project for the public, the opportunity for folks to educate themselves about what's happening. And we've placed a link to this on the newsflash section of our homepage of the website. So we encourage folks to go there. The Zoom link's available on our homepage. It's also available from the various fire agencies that are involved. So really encourage folks who are interested in this topic to attend the meeting so they can learn more. Then the other news I want to share, exciting news. I want to confirm that the 4th of July parade is going to happen this year. And I've been talking to my counterpart in Corte Madera, Todd Cusimano. The council knows, I'm not sure the public knows, the Corte Madera Chamber of Commerce is sort of the primary actor for making the parade happen, with the town and the city in a support role. And so the Corte Madera Chamber's hard at work to put everything together. The town and the city, we're working on our public works plans to make it all happen, but it's exciting to know that one of our traditions will be coming back. So more to follow, but one of the first tasks I want to remind the council that now will come up is in probably April, is the need to consider a Citizen of the Year who will get to be honored in the parade. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dan. Are there questions from the city council to the city manager regarding his report this evening?
Dan, just one comment. It's really exciting to see the parade coming back. One of the traditions that I've enjoyed over the last number of years is joining our local Boy Scout troop for the flag raising at the American Legion Hall in Larkspur in advance of that parade, and I am looking forward with delight over the prospect of doing that again this year in person.
Great. Are there other council members that have questions or comments for the city manager regarding his report this evening? If not, are there members of the public that would like to ask questions or make comments regarding the city manager's report this evening?
I'm looking for any raised hands from our audience members or emailed comments. And there is no public comment.
Thank you, Allison. The next item on the agenda this evening are council member reports and comments. Are there any city council members that have reports this evening? I just have one. Catherine, go ahead.
I just, I'm your representative to the MCCMC legislative meeting, which we met on Monday morning. And just a few bills I thought would be interesting to highlight. Several of them are being introduced by Assemblyman Mark Levine, who is our assembly person. And AB 1445 is about emergency evacuation capacity when considering new housing, which I think we will be seeing more of. And he's also introducing legislation that will allow homeowners in high hazard fire areas, if they engage in home hardening measures, to have non-renewal of their insurance changed. So that'll be good. There's some new revisions to the Brown Act, which have been put forward this year. I think between 2019, between last year and this year, 4,500 bills have been introduced in the last 2 years, which is a lot of legislation that our lobbyists and the League of California Cities is dealing with. Some I thought were interesting were about new teleconferencing for meetings, doing a hybrid meeting and allowing that as far as public noticing and all. SB 1100 is an interesting one, which can allow the removal of a person from a public meeting if they are continuously interrupting the public meeting process, which we don't seem to have a lot of in Larkspur, but that's an interesting dialogue that went on about that. And a lot of others about parking and the removing the need for parking are pretty prominent. And then lastly, I thought an interesting one that is sort of in the exterior of our jurisdiction was the idea of creating a toll authority for Highway 37. Highway 37's renovation and redoing of it and the creation of toll authorities to help pay for this has become a very interesting and prominent idea throughout California. So and I also wanted to thank Councilmember Hara for attending the countywide Priority Planning Commission. I think that's the acronym for it, for me on Thursday when I was unable to attend. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Dan.
Councilmember Way's report, made me realize I did forget one additional piece of information. Our current plan is that your next meeting on March 16 will be your last completely virtual meeting, and that we believe we now have everything in place to initiate hybrid meetings starting in April. So more information to follow, but that's our plan at the moment.
How can I ask how you define a hybrid meeting? Is that all of us in one location, or
So our current plan is council members will have the option to participate in the council chamber or online. And then members of the public will have the option to participate in the council chamber or online. Given the small space, we'll have to restrict the number of people that can actually be in the council chamber at any one time. So we'll have to come up with some guidelines around that. But we think we have a pretty good plan in place. Some of the other cities have been doing it. It's similar to what the county's put in place.
So just some of the concerns that came up at that Monday meeting was about public notice. If a council member chooses to remain within their own private home, whether public has access to that. So just, and whether they have to post this.
So you do, yes, that is, unless the legislation gets changed, then
Okay.
to participate from home, you will need to do that. I can tell you, this is something that I was talking about with City Attorney Woodruff today. It's a very regrettable oversight on the part of the legislature that they didn't recognize this new technology and take that particular requirement out of the equation. And hopefully they'll fix it because we want everybody to participate, including our council members. And with this new technology, it really, those of us who remember the teleconference days know that this is way better because you all get to participate no matter what your lives may be requiring you to do. So I'm a big fan of getting rid of that particular aspect of things.
Yeah, that was brought up by a concern from Pat Eklund from Novato, was that if council members choose to participate from home, that the current legislation requires them to open their home to public access and comment. So I'd like, if we can get that clarified, that'd be great eventually.
I'm clarifying it now. That is the law. That is the law.
Just to add to what the city manager said, so under the provisions of the Brown Act as amended by AB 361, as long as there are emergency conditions that would justify continuing to adopt the emergency resolution that the council has been adopting for a few months now, the requirement to post the agenda at each teleconference location and to allow the public to attend would continue to be excused. But once you're no longer adopting the AB 361 resolution, at that point, the standard Brown Act rules kick in. You'd still be able to participate via teleconference, but at that point, you would have to post the agenda at your home and you would have to allow the public to access that location to participate in the meeting.
Okay.
That's a good one for Assembly Member Levine to fix. So you could tell him to do that.
I'll pass
So,
it on.
and I'm sorry, just so I understand, you're saying if anyone, any of the council members choose to Zoom in for one of these meetings, they need to open their home up to whoever wants to participate at that location. Is that what you're saying?
We'll actually need to know when we post the agenda where you plan to be. We'll need to list it on the agenda, and then you will need to provide the public access to wherever it is you are.
I
I will
see.
announce right now, I will be at the Silver Peso. So would you,
I suspect we're moving to a future where all council meetings will be at the Silver Base.
It could be. Mr. Mayor, just this is Kevin, just a quick comment. Those are requirements that we used to deal with anyway. So it would be nice to have it fixed given the new environment that we're in. But as I recall, I participated in public meetings from my office in San Francisco on many occasions and posted that on the door, made sure notice was provided, and invited the public to participate. So it sounds a little onerous, but it's actually not too bad.
Any other questions for the city manager regarding this report? Thank you very much. I just have one quick announcement, and it's regarding follow-up to Dan's announcement regarding 4th of July parade. I may be away, so I'm going to announce right now that Vice Mayor Paulson may be asked to fill in for me at the parade. And I'm hoping Finn can join. I have to attend a wedding, so I may be gone.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could jump in, because I do have a short report.
Please.
Yes, and on that point, I will remind the mayor and the vice mayor that one of the other things that I do at the 4th of July parade is judge. I hope I will be requested to do that again this year. So anyone who is participating in the parade itself will have to suffer my wrath if they don't do a good job. More importantly for tonight, I just have a couple of things to report. Tomorrow and Friday, I'll be engaged in a couple of committee meetings with MCE Clean Energy, including a meeting on Friday with the MC Executive Committee, which I currently chair. We'll be discussing current issues regarding energy procurement and storage, which I am very excited about because I think that MCE has continued to provide leadership on these issues throughout the state of California. And I'd be happy to discuss any aspect of that with interested members of the public offline whenever it may be convenient. Next, on an unrelated subject, I have asked the mayor to initiate a process to address the issue of residential use of properties in our community for short-term rentals. This is an issue that I may be confronting personally in the near term, but it also has been raised recently by others. My request would be that the council conduct a special session to discuss the issue and consider potential changes to our municipal code to address it. But I will defer to the mayor and our city manager as to how consideration of this matter should best be conducted.
Thank you for those comments.
That's it.
All right. If there are other council member reports or comments this evening, we'll move on with the agenda. We have no public hearings tonight. We have one business item. That's a request from the County of Marin for 2 appointees to a community advisory group for 1251 South Eliseo Drive, the project Homekey. May we please have a staff report?
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor, as the council knows, the county created a community advisory group for the project Homekey site at 1251 South Eliseo. And early in that process, the county and the project managers solicited interest from the public to participate in that group. There was a heavy emphasis in the selection process on individuals that lived in close proximity to the site. And in addition, among folks that were invited, 2 liaisons from the council were invited, and that's Councilmember Way and Councilmember Candell. When the county recently accepted the funding for the project, one of the things that Supervisor Rice announced is her desire to expand the community advisory group. And among the additions, she wanted to make sure that there were 2 additional residents of Larkspur that sat on the group, and that she wanted to defer to the city council to make the selection of who those individuals should be. So this is your first opportunity to talk about that assignment from Supervisor Rice, and you have a couple of choices here. You can make an appointment or 2 this evening if you have individuals in the community that you think are appropriate to put on the community advisory group. You can also decide you want to put out a call for applicants, and we can do that for you. We have templates for soliciting interest. Or you may have your own thoughts on another process. This is really now in your court to decide how you want to go about it. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. I also want to acknowledge there were in the staff report, there were a letter from the county and a letter from the city of Lark describing this request. And having additional information in those letters. Are there questions for the city manager regarding his staff report this evening? Are there members of the public that would like to ask questions or make comments regarding the staff report this evening?
Looks like
I'm
Scott has
looking
his
for
hand
any
up.
raise.
Mayor, it looks like Scott has his hand up for you.
Scott, do you have a question?
Just a comment. I think, Catherine and I have been on this committee. I think we've received a lot of interest from people. I think it would be a mistake to pick somebody today. I think we should put a call out as one of the choices by the city manager, get interest from people in the community, and then we can talk about it at the next meeting. That'd probably be the prudent thing to do.
I'm inclined to agree with you. Other council members want to weigh in? Vice Mayor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering if the city manager could just say a little bit more about the template, the call for interested parties, if it has criteria, if that's something that we would fill in, or just a general idea of what that might look like.
Our template is, are you interested? So if there's something else that the council wants as a criterion, you'd need to let us know.
I have a question, Dan. My experience with previous advisory groups with the county makes me wonder if it isn't appropriate, if we're interested in the success of this effort, if we can make some suggestions regarding the operation of the advisory group. In particular, I would want to request, if it's not already going to be required, that this particular group, for example, operate according to the Brown Act and Robertson's Rules of Order. Also, that I would ask that they consider audio recording the meetings. I think there's some operational suggestions that the city would, I think it would benefit us if they would take into account things like this that are not in place in other citizen advisory group processes. So other council members have comments? Catherine?
Yeah, I'd like to echo Councilmember Candel's comment. We've been participating in this process now for a couple of months, and they did have, I think it was maybe 40 applicants for the initial round of the Citizen Advisory Committee, and those were chosen by the core group back in the fall, but a lot's gone on since then. And not only have there been a lot more public process, there's been a lot more information that's been gathered. There's been public hearings by school boards and by and by the Board of Supervisors, that I think opening this up to a broader conversation now, we might solicit applicants who have been informed in a broader process than they were back in November. So I echo Scott's need to actually ask for applicants renewed. As far as your comment, Mayor, I think that the advisory committee is going to have 4 subcommittees. One is communications, one is public safety. I think the third was metrics for success. And it remind me, Scott, if I'm wrong, I think the 4th was about process of community engagement. So
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, including volunteerism. The next meeting of this community advisory group involves a tour of the facility tomorrow, and further meetings will be happening at the end of the month. So if we can solicit community members representing Larkspur/Green to add to it, I think there's a lot more information they have now that they can make a more informed decision. Is that possible for us? To do that on our website, or how would that go about? How would we go about doing that?
I would ask the city manager his guidance.
Yeah, we usually would put a form on the website, and then we'll push out through all of our different communication channels that it's available, and invite people to fill it out, turn it in.
Yeah.
So the simplest approach is, are you interested and why are you interested? And then folks will give you a pretty good sense of who they are and what they want to bring to the table.
Yeah, I would like that method. I think that will be able to broaden the community of interest from just the geographic proximity to the facility. Now that more people are aware of what's going on, I think that expressed in many of the public comments were discussions of financial oversight and making sure that the entire community is engaged. So does that sound like something you would support, Scott?
Yeah, the biggest comment that I think we received was that people felt almost blindsided that they weren't given notice of what was going on until late in the process. So I think we should publicize this as much as we can so that everybody knows we're looking for people, and if people are really interested, that they should apply. And I would hate for us to pick people and then later have people say, oh, I wanted to be on the committee, but nobody told me. So, the more I'll put it out, I have an email list of people who've been emailing me, but it would be great if we can just get it out to as many people as we can.
But this request is for a Larkspur Greenbrae resident, right? Not for, was that the request?
Yes.
I believe 2 Larkspur residents.
Okay.
Vice Mayor Paulson.
Yeah, just thinking one step ahead, let's say we go with this call for applicants. We see ourselves, as a council reading all the applications and, possibly doing interviews on some like we do for all the other committees, like the, planning committee and so forth.
I would look to the staff to give us options.
We've done it different ways. It often has to do with the volume of applications. I don't know what that volume is going to look like, so it's hard for me to tell you. I think a few of you were with us way back when we did the community facility parcel master plan, and there were not, there weren't huge numbers. So I think council just chose to read them all. But we've done other processes where we have a lot of interest, and then usually we try to do some whittling down. It's kind of hard for me to give you a recommendation. I think it will need to see just how much interest there is. One of the concerns I guess I have listening to this conversation is we probably need the county to be really clear what the group does, so that folks aren't applying thinking, for example, that they have fiduciary oversight, because I don't think that's the county's intention. So I think we need to just be really clear what exactly is the group empowered to do or advise about, so that when we put this call out, folks actually know what it is they're signing up for.
Nice. Vice Mayor Paulson.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say, Dan, I think that in addition to saying, why are you interested and so forth, I think that would be a great way to publicize this. And as a suggestion, you had sent us what the county had done with 25 applicants, which is not a small number. And, at a minimum, that was really helpful, to have that, their basic questions answered, and even a pre-screening if the staff wants to do that. But, I'd love to know that anybody who applies, I could at least see something, if that's possible. If all things were transposed or entered onto a spreadsheet like that, or even if it's all attached and we can read them, that would be great. So that's my preference. Thank you.
Okay, other council member comments? I think the direction is to ask staff to have a process to gauge public interest and solicit applications. Do I have that correct, Dan?
Yes, and I'll try to get a good description of the activities of the group so that we can attach that.
All right. All right. Any further action on this item required?
I don't think so, no.
All right.
Excuse me, Mayor, just another question. Do we know how big the committee is? Are there 6 or 8 people already on the community advisory group?
There are 14 plus consultants and staff.
Staff.
Okay. Okay, and how many meetings do they plan to have, or is that not yet published?
This isn't a legally required body, so there aren't rules for this. I think you need to take that kind of perspective. It's, Corte Madera had one. It met frequently at first, then it met less frequently as they saw less need to meet. And so I think the group might be deciding some of this.
That was why I made the suggestions earlier. I found in my experience with some of these advisory groups that if they don't have rules, just like public meeting rules, people become very disappointed during the meetings because of some of the normally available mechanisms are not in place regarding transparency, especially.
I might be able
Questions
to,
or comments?
I might be able to
Okay.
answer some of that. I think that the large body is supposed to meet once a month, if I'm correct, but the 4 subcommittees may meet more regularly depending upon the priorities of the issues that the subcommittees are dealing with, like communications and addressing the concerns that were expressed about public safety. So those will probably, in my estimation, be meeting in a more frequent manner. But, this process is still not exactly clear to all of us at this point. So
I just would observe it's important to protect the credibility of the group and their efforts. Other council member comments, or questions? If not, I think we've finished our action regarding this item. Is that correct?
I have direction, yes, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda this evening is adjournment. I would like to acknowledge the challenges the world is facing in Eastern Europe and express concern and support for the people of Ukraine and the lost souls, the citizens. I think many of us can empathize with the pain and suffering that they are feeling. So with that expression of empathy, I think we'll end the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask for us to adjourn with those sentiments precisely.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone. We'll adjourn to our next regular meeting on March 16th. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.